Shalom Israel. First and foremost, we want to give all praises, all honor, all glory to Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua, Ba'Shem HaKadosh, the bunch of the apostles, and else great millstone for teaching us the truth, peace, and blessings to the hopeful of Israel, Shalom. Yahweh is the name of the Heavenly Hebrew. Ba'Shem means the name, and Yahushai is the name of the unbegotten Son. Background lesson. And today, we're going to go into these food prices that are skyrocketing, dealing with the inflation and the many complications and the problems that will arise from it. As you saw a few months back, dealing with the egg prices, and the complications that came from that. People weren't able to, buy or get things at their leisure, like they once used to, even a year ago, if not that, going into the gas prices, man, and the problems that arose from that. People were stealing gas, man, from cars, and even truckers weren't able to pay those insane amount of prices to, transport food every single time. And now you're seeing right here in the title, it says world food prices rising again. As you see many people already losing their jobs, you're seeing tons of layoffs. So you're going to see a lot of people resorting to, a lot of drastic measures in order to obtain food. I have a few articles to, go into these problems that are rising, and it just goes to show that things will only get worse from here on out. I see right here many articles going to what's happening over there in the UK. And these took place over the course of the few weeks. Now, I said it's like UK food prices skyrocket, UK food prices double, rising food prices a priority concern for UK. And as I mentioned, you already see a lot of layoffs and people losing their jobs, man. And people are not just able to go to the grocery store and buy the things, as I mentioned earlier, at their leisure as they used to, Now they have to, start to, what's the word I'm looking for? It's like a better word, ration or, put things back, the things that they used to get or used to like to snack on. They're not able to get those things anymore, or as the case may be. But just going to showcase that things are only going downhill. Things are only progressively going to get worse from here on out. And this is an example of what's coming over here to Babylon the Great, as we saw, a few times already. And the chaos that erupted from that. Now it says world food prices rising again. So this is not dealing with just one place. It's dealing with the whole world. This goes to show the plagues and pestilence that Yahweh Shemashai is bringing out upon this place. Now, it's time to these few articles. I'm going to try to fly through these since I got a decent amount of them. And dive into these few scriptures that came to mind just to showcase the chaos, that's to come. Because you will see people start to, resort to drastic measures in order to feed their children, to put food on the table, and to even feed themselves, Now, the index of global food costs rose in April for the first time in a year. You really see many people having to worry about, paying bills, even barely making it on time to, even pay it off, And that barely leaves any money for food. So once again, you didn't see many complications, and problems arising once again, just to, push that point, across. Sorry for sounding like a broken record, but the Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO, of the United Nations reported on Friday that global food prices grew in April for the first time in a year. And it's only going to get worse. As people think that, Babylon the Great and, in America, that things are only going to go back to normal, that things are going to so-called stabilize and, America's going to rebound, as you saw, what happened, I believe a year or two ago, going to those gas prices once again, and how, chaotic that was, But a slight rebound in the FFPI, which goes into the food price index, in April was led by a steep increase in the sugar price index along with an upturn in the meat price index, while the cereals, dairy, and vegetable oil prices indices continue to drop, the FAO said, which I believe a couple months ago I saw an article where you had, I believe it was either Walmart or another store, they pretty much, started locking up, the meat, putting it behind, a cage, as you see what they do with, electronics, where you have to go to one of the employees, and ask them to unlock it for you, This is going to show, how really bad it is, man. That people are resorting to, stealing food. Now, when people aren't able to do that, what makes you think what they're gonna do next? They're gonna start breaking into people's homes, waiting outside stores to pick people off. These are the times that we are coming into, and how things will only be taken to a whole nother level. Now, there's a slight rebound in the FFPI food price index, which we just read that right there, Slakia. Ultimately, you're seeing a heavy, famine brewing, as you see, with a couple weeks ago, which I think I let's going into, dealing with that explosion, that so-called explosion that killed over 18,000 plus cows. And a few months before that, dealing with the egg farms, the chicken farms that were lit ablaze, which is going to lead to, a scarcity of food and an increase of the prices for the food. So ultimately, you see what these devils are also trying to do, but it's still the main point. According to the report, the sugar price index soared 17% from March, hitting its highest level since October 2011. So nearly 10 plus years ago. Now, the rise was reportedly linked to concerns over tighter supplies following downward revisions to production forecasts for India and China, along with lower than expected output in Thailand and the European Union. The meat price index was up 1% from March, while daily dairy prices fell 1%. Vegetable oil prices were also down 1%, making the fifth consecutive monthly decline. A little bit more into this. The cereal price index dropped 1.7, with a decline in the world prices overall. Our prices of all major grains outweighing an increase in the rice prices. Let's jump down here. So according to the UN body, favorable crop conditions in Europe, along with an agreement at the end of April following Ukrainian grains to transit through European Union countries that had imposed important import restrictions early in the month, also contributed to the overall softer tone in the markets. Read the last bit here and dive into the other articles. So meanwhile, Torero projected that as the global economies recover from significant slowdowns, demand will increase, exerting upward pressure on food prices. Now, there you go. As you see, America's dollar pretty much losing its value. You see other nations dropping it and leaving it behind. You see America, in an all-time high in debt. So you see the problems that already arise from that. You see people losing their money from the bank's collapses, not getting their money back. So things are just going downhill, man. Now let's dive into the other articles, and we'll go into a few scripts that came to mind. A 441 top left, man. Lords will word that number. Now, it says UK food prices skyrocket. And I saw a few articles coming about this right here. And it took place over the course of the few days or a few weeks. Now it says, soaring costs for basic essentials have led to a decline in living standards in the country. People are not able to buy things at their leisure anymore. That's why it keeps going to how victuals shall be so good, cheap on earth, that you think themselves to be in good case. People think that everything's all fine and dandy. Thinking everything's all normal. When these things are happening right under your nose. Especially when things start to so-called stabilize after these problems occur. Think everything's just all okay. Well, it's only going to hit you even harder the next time. Now, it says British households have been hit with the record jump in food prices as decades high inflation continues to cripple the economy. According to the latest figures from British Retail Consortium, a report by the trade body, which represents UK supermarkets, showed on Tuesday that fresh food prices soared by 17% in April on an annual basis, while prices for tinned goods and other store cupboard items accelerated by 12%. So according to the BRC Nielsen IQ Shop Price Index, prices were up 8.8 last month compared to the same period in the previous year, while slightly down from 8.9 in March. And this is where you'll also see, shrinkflation, where they'll decrease the product size and keep the price the same. So you're pretty much losing out on your money. You even see, fast food places, they'll start to do, basically give less, than they used to. Now, the overall shop price inflation eased slightly in April due to heavy spring discounting and closing. footwear and furniture. BRC chief executive Helen Dickinson was quoted as saying by Sky News, however, food prices remain elevated, giving ongoing cost pressures throughout the supply chain. She added, said Dixon indicated that some goods such as ready meals have been seeing prices rise due to the knock-on effect from increased production and packaging cost. This is damn sure what they're saying. That's why they're increasing the prices. In reality, there's a scarcity of food, and just you see the things those are dealing with all these different animals. The egg farms are being let ablaze. You're seeing cows being exploded. Going back to that article. Now, let's see. Meanwhile, head of retail and business insight at Nielsen Q, Mike Watkin, noted that the inflation yet to peak and sales volume mostly in decline. It's difficult to second guess the strength of consumer confidence. As official figures showed last month that the rate of inflation in Britain had eased slightly, but still remains above 10%, with food and drink costs at a 45-year high. Now let's get these other articles. We got two more and shut up from there, which is the most recent one right here. UK food prices double. Soaring costs for basic essentials have led to a decline in living standards in the country. So pretty much just going to the same thing. Food costs have continued to rise in Britain, with prices for meat products, yogurt, and vegetables doubling over the past year, according to the latest findings from which Consumer Insight Tracker. And that just goes to show how bad it is that it's doubling. The monthly survey commissioned by the Food Standards Agency revealed on Tuesday that inflation in categories that have previously experienced a sharp increase, including milk, butter, spreads, and bakery items, have eased slightly, but other essentials food groups have continued to rise month to month. So it's only, getting worse. It's only, increasing. And this is once again an example of what's coming over here to America, to Babylon the Great. The firm's April analysis on more than 26,000 food and drink products at 8 major supermarkets showed that on average the cost of meat, fish, yogurt, and vegetables rose 15, 16, 21, and 15% respectively. Looking at averages across a long-term or a longer 3-month period, we have found some examples of individual items doubling in price in the space of a year, the report said. See the bottom part of this right here. These examples of massive supermarket prices hikes on some common food types show how difficult it is, particularly for consumers on low incomes, to maintain a healthy diet. That's where you're going to have a lot of people resorting to drastic measures in order to obtain food. As we're also going to see many people that are not able to make a good amount of money to buy things at their leisure. Now they're going to start putting things back. Continue on. The researchers stated other food categories where inflation continued to rise month to month included juice, chocolate, water, fish, chilled ready meals, and cheese. Let's get to this last bit right here. Let's go to this last part right here. It says, given that its latest data shows that food inflation remains at shockingly high levels, it's very alarming to see products such as meat, cheese, and vegetables that people rely on still rapidly soaring in price. We're going to see a scarcity in food, which can lead to the prices only increasing and rising. And you're going to see a lot of complications and problems rise from that. People fighting each other over the lack of bread, as scripts go into, even people killing each other over it. You saw another example that happened over there in China. I believe it was like Shanghai, China, which I made a few lessons, go into the situation that took place over there, dealing with the lockdowns. We had many people trying to prepare for it, and people were pretty much, stomping and trampling over each other just to get food, So now imagine when there is a scarcity of it, and there's just getting lesser and lesser of it, As well, people were just resorting to drastic measures, and so they're not able to pay those insane amount of prices. Just once again going to the problems that will occur, especially once again, you see, as I mentioned earlier, people losing their jobs, layoffs. It's just only going to go more downhill. Now it says, said Sue Daves, the head of food policy at which supermarkets must also provide transparent pricing so people can easily work out which products offer the best value. It's a really tiny bit of this. I don't want to stall at the intro. I do want to dive into scriptures. Rising food prices, a priority concern for UK. Grocery inflation surged above 19% in March, according to data from the Bank of England. Let's see, let's get read this part here. So we are actually acutely aware of how difficult this rise in food prices is for people, especially for those on lower incomes. There you go. He said he expects food price inflation to start slowing down, but admits that it's taking longer than we've previously thought. And now it's doing damage to go. First, Second Thessalonians, I believe 5-3. Let's get this real quick. Or sorry, Second Thessalonians 2-9, which we get after we get Second Ezra 16 right here, just to add on to that. Excuse me. Second Ezra 16:21, it says, "Behold, victuals shall be so good, cheap upon earth, that they shall think themselves to be in good case." As you saw, dealing with the egg prices, finally starting to so-called stabilize. You saw with the gas prices, start to so-called stabilize. People were finally thinking that things were starting to go back to normal, when things were only going to get worse. Now it said, "Behold, victuals shall be so good, cheap upon earth, they shall think themselves to be in good case. And even then, evils shall grow upon earth, sword, famine, and great confusion." So these are things that you see pretty much taking place right under your nose. You're seeing heavy famines brewing, especially dealing with the famine of the word, and great confusion. You're seeing these plagues and pestilence that Yahweh Shema Shai is bringing upon this place. You're seeing storms, judgments, just everything that Yahweh Shema is bringing upon this place is going to show we're nearing the end, and that things will not get better. As we progress lives and days, things will only continue to pick up. You're going to see those, prices only continue to rise, and get even worse. Which is why you're going to have many people killing each other over the food, especially when there is a scarcity of it, Because you see with the inflation, that means they're getting, lesser and lesser of it. 2 Thessalonians 2:9, now says, "Even him who's coming is after the working of Satan with all power and signs and lying wonders." Which is the one I want, and I believe it's 1 Thessalonians 3. Yeah. Slovakia. This one right here. 1 Thessalonians 5:3, now says, "For when there shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them as developed upon one with a child, and they shall not escape." Now you see them trying to do damage control, trying to say things are going to get better, the prices will stabilize, so you don't have to worry about that. But as you read right here, "For when there shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them as developed upon a woman with a child, and they shall not escape." So it will only get worse, and there is no peace nor safety come to this place. As you already see, many riots and protests are taking place. You're seeing just heavy judgments and plagues and pestilence being upon this place. Things are not going back to normal, and there's no peace nor safety come to this place, man, because the Lord is fed up. So it's important to seek out Yahweh Shema Shai and to repent before it's too late, because you don't want to be part of that number that's caught up in the midst of these chaotic times. Matthew 24:1-3, as you see, an example of Black Friday, you see how chaotic people get just to get a deal on electronics. Now imagine when there's a scarcity of food, when people need to, when people are starving, when people need to put food on the table for their children. What do you think people are going to do in order to obtain it? Matthew 24:1-8. This is a stepping stone of what's to come, in order for things to get worse, in order to get to that point. Matthew 24:2-8 now says, "As he sat upon the mount, all the disciples came to him privately, saying, Tell us when shall these things be, and what shall be the sign of the coming of the end of the world?" Now it's going to list all those signs that we would see now take place before Lord Yahweh shall return. Verse 4, "And Yahweh shall answer and said to them, Take heed that no man deceive you, for many shall come in my name, saying, I'm anointed, and shall deceive many." So you be wary and careful who you are listening to and who your true teachers are. The lies guys are really trying to keep you here and ultimately get you destroyed. IOIC, many other like camps. Verse 6, "And you shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these must come pass, but the end is not yet." And it's also another end time sign. Seeing these wars and rumors of wars, seeing the conflicts, the commotion that you see between the nations, and how the tensions are only getting worse. An end time sign that's gonna ultimately build up to the point of World War III, which is ultimately through the Spirit of Yahweh Shema Shai that these things are happening. Verse 7, for nation shall rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places. And seeing these things is the work of Yahweh Shema Shai. Seeing these famines brewing, seeing these plagues, these pestilence. You see also the Euphrates rivers starting to dry up. Heavy earthquakes, storms taking place, which are judgment from the Lord. Verse 8, all these are the beginning of sorrow. So, wait, we're just in the beginning of this, man. When you go into the NLT version, it pretty much goes into, the beginning of those birth pains, man. Which we get in those scriptures right here. We should get this first, actually, and we'll get that one. Now, 2nd Ezra 15:49, I'll send plagues upon thee, widowhood, poverty, famine. As you also see, as I mentioned earlier, many people are losing their jobs. You're seeing tons of layoffs, dealing with Amazon. It's not even speaking of other people losing their jobs. As you saw what happened over there in Florida also. Many Jakes, dealing with Issachar are not able to, I believe, stay over there in Florida now or even work there. They don't have, proof that they're, a so-called, U.S. citizen. Just go to show how, just wicked these devils are, man. Calling, our people immigrants, aliens. When they're the ones that came over here, put our people in the chains, saying they found the land first when our people were here first, man. But that's going off track. 2nd Ezra 15:49, I will send plagues upon thee, widowhood, poverty, famine, sword, and pestilence to waste thy house with destruction and death. So seeing these things is the work of Yahweh Shema Shai. Going back to the book of Deuteronomy 32:9, and many other scriptures going to how these judgments are from the Heavenly Father. Especially now you see these, prices only skyrocketing, rising. It's going to lead a lot of people, starving and without food. It's not able to, can buy things at their leisure as they once used to. Now that they, cut back and, ration. And a lot of people are going to once again resort to drastic measures, robbing people for food. It's only get worse. And also these devils may use that in order to, get a lot of people on board with, taking that karagma, that sihib, in order to obtain benefits, where you get deals for food, or the case may be, man. 2nd Ezra 16:38, because they're the ones mainly causing these problems, these commotions that you see, as I kind of mentioned a little bit earlier, dealing with the, the egg farms, chicken farms being lit ablaze. You saw 18,000 plus cows get killed, and they said it was by an explosion, which I don't believe it was just by, an explosion, because over 18,000 plus cows, to hold that many in one area, come on. Which I may let's go into, as well as many other brothers have also touched on. But 2nd Ezra 16:38, as I kind of read, mentioned in Matthew 24 and the 8th verse, how all these are the beginning of sorrows. And if you go into the LT version, it goes into those birth pains. As you'll see right here, as when a woman with child in 9th month bringeth forth her son, with 2 or 3 hours of her birth, great pains compass her womb. So who is that baby about to be delivered? Israel. And as you get closer and closer to, that deliverance, those birth pains will only increase and get a lot heavier. That's when those birth pains are at its peak. With 2 or 3 hours of birth, great pains compass her womb, which pains when the child cometh forth, they slack not a moment. Meaning, not not letting up. Meaning it's constant. Even so shall the plagues be slacked upon the earth, and the world shall mourn, and sorrow shall come upon it on every side. Here in the article, how this is a worldwide thing. Now it says worldwide, or it's like world food prices rising again. And it's only going to get worse. It's only going to increase. Things are not going back to normal as people like to hope. Going years back, how people thought pretty much every other, or every year, was going to be, so-called better. Going back to the year 2020, people couldn't wait to get out of the year 2020. I can't wait for the new year, new me. I can't wait for, next year to get out of this terrible year, this and that. But only continue to, get worse, It's only going to get more chaotic. It's just going to get even worse than the year before, Because it goes to show that we're nearing the end, that we're getting closer and closer to our Lord Yahweh Shai's return. And you're seeing the steps being taken to get to that point. That's why we were warning you to repent, to seek Yahweh Shai before it's too late. Because, you're seeing it. You're seeing the inflation, the prices rising within the food and pretty much your daily necessities. People are not able to, pay and buy for things as they once used to. As we read in the beginning lesson, going back into how victuals shall be so good to people on earth, that they shall think themselves to be in good case. People, thought things were going to go back to normal. That things were finally starting to stabilize. But right under your nose, these things were only, starting to, pick up, Now, we got this right here. Now let's dive into these other scriptures and we'll shout out from there. Sacrifice sound like a broken record, repeating certain things, but the Lord won't be in the point of cross. 2 Ezra 15:11-12. But I'll bring them with a mighty hand and stretch the arms and smite Egypt with plagues as before. When you go back to the book of Revelations, to go to show that America, aka Babylon the Great, is spiritually Sodom and Egypt. And smite Egypt with plagues as before and will destroy all the land thereof. So showing you, pretty much who Egypt is speaking of. Verse 12, Egypt shall mourn, and the foundation of it shall be smitten with the plague and punishment as the Most High shall bring upon it. So Yahweh Shai is punishing this place, man. He's continuing to, rain plagues and pestilence upon us. He's sending a barrage upon this place, man. That's why we're seeing so many things happening and taking place after another. So we're seeing tons of judgment, tons of death, the increase of storms, plagues, pestilence, famines brewing. Yahweh Shai is cranking things up, man. Kicking things into a whole nother gear. Now, the 2 Ezra 15:19, now it says, a man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their houses with sword, and spoil their goods because of lack of bread and for great tribulation. And this goes to show how bad the times that we are coming into. They're going to have people resorting to these drastic measures in order to obtain food. In order to obtain, necessities in order to, feed, their children, even themselves. They're going to be they're resorting to those measures to rob people, to kill people. You're going to start have people, camping outside stores, waiting for people to walk out with goods, Especially, now that you're seeing the inflation. You see food prices doubling over there in the UK, So imagine what's going to take place. These are the times that we are in, man. Yahweh Shai is showing you that we're nearing the end. Read one more time. A man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their houses with the sword, and spoil their goods because lack of bread and for great tribulation. So there you go. Lack of bread means lack of food. 2 Ezra 6:22, and suddenly shall the sown places appear unsown, the full storehouses shall suddenly be found empty. Look what happened when the lockdowns took place. People were panicking, and buying everything that they can. Especially with the toilet paper, man. So you saw all the, the shelves being emptied out, and you even see now how they have this kind of technique, how they will scatter the food, in the for the shelves to make it seem like it's kind of full. But pretty much the main point already. Sacrifice sound like a broken record and repeat certain things, but Lord got the point across, and you're edified, man. But hey, things are only getting worse, man. It's only gonna pick up. And then look at this right here, what's taking place over in the UK. And that's just an example of what's coming over here to Babylon the Great, aka America. Especially now that you see the paper dollar pretty much losing its value. You see the bank collapses, where you also see a lot of people losing out on their money. So, a lot of people are not going to be able to, get things as they once used to, and you got to resort to drastic measures that, keep mentioning throughout the lesson, recently to a lot of chaos and, people, killing each other and stealing from each other, man. So, it's only getting worse from here on out, but Lord was edifying, and to give all praises, all honor and glory to Yahweh Shai, Bashem Kakadash, the ones the apostles, and else great millstone for teaching us the truth, peace and blessings to the whole collective Israel, and Shalom, thanks from Lord.